Princess duo here. First up, we got Samantha Kelly, voice of Princess Peach.
No, here.
Yeah, here's something. I'll take that.
Okay, we gotta check out some more comments.
And Arthur?
And then also we have Laura Faye Smith, voice of Rosalina.
Hello. Is this on?
Yes. All right, so I think probably best to start off just how your career started. I know Laura, you and I talked a little bit, and we talked a little about that, but I'm also interested in Samantha. How did you start your career? How did you get into this?
Basically a miracle, because when I was little, I was so super shy. Like, I was the kid in the 5th grade, I couldn't even talk. Like, if a teacher talked to me, I'd just be sitting there, blushing and shivering and stuff. And so my mom always told me, well, you probably could get a job in research or be a nice librarian or something really quiet. And it's just the coolest thing. I don't know if you guys have experienced that, but when you start acting and you're doing another character, then suddenly you almost have something that makes you brave. And it's something you hide behind, but it also makes you more of yourself. And so I just kind of grew into that. And I always did voices, which I didn't know what to do with them. And then I did a lot of theater, and then I started doing radio, and eventually got an agent. I had commercials that I was doing, like things like Nordstrom or banks or grocery stores and stuff like that. And then one day they go, hey, we've got this audition for you, and it's for, a game. Okay, so I go there, and I guess Jen Taylor had been doing the voice for Peach and Toad, and they go, can you match this? And I was like, yeah. So I matched it, but I had no idea what it was really for or about. And then I got the job, and then I played the game, and then I realized, oh my gosh, what just happened? So it's so fabulous because I swear, I think if I would have known how cool it was before I did it, it probably would have freaked me out, and I wouldn't have been able to do it. So, miracle!
And Laura, you want to talk about how you got this?
Yeah, it wasn't something I had set out to do. Like I liked acting, and I did a lot of theater. Like growing up, I've talked about this a lot on like podcasts and stuff. But I have an older sister who started doing theater. She's 2 years older than me, so I'd be at the middle school and I was doing like photography club or something. And she was like at rehearsal at the high school doing theater, and so my mom would pick me up, and then we'd go over. They were never done because showbiz never runs on time. So I would always be there like watching her rehearsal. And I had like a train wreck fascination with it. Not like I wanted to do that, just like, this is so weird. And, but then I remember when the show opened, I went and saw it every night. And I was just kind of like, wow, it's a little different every night. And I would see things that I'd been watching rehearsal, so I knew that some mistakes would happen. Like I remember one night my sister had like a glass of like colored water for wine or something. And someone bumped the table and like spilled all over her costume. And I was just like, what happens now? And it's like, you go on and you just keep doing stuff. So like I got fascinated with live theater, and then I ended up getting into that. And then went to school, and my parents would pay for my education, and I majored in theater because they said I'd never make any money as an actor, because they're like, you'll never make it. And they, not because they didn't think I was good, they just didn't know anybody with a career in acting. They were like, you're either famous and winning Oscars and on red carpets, or you're not thinking every TV show you see, every movie you see, there's working actors in that who aren't famous, but they're getting paid to be there. So I think, growing up where I did, we didn't have any kind of a blueprint. Like there was nobody in our life that was making a living that way. So my parents didn't think it was possible. So I majored in English and snuck theater in there. And then went to work in the corporate world, and then just continued to do theater at night. And then suddenly I had like an on-camera agent who doing like film and TV and commercial stuff, and then ended up with a voice agent, and then they're the ones that sent me the Princess Rosalina audition, and I think most people know I'm the third person to do that, to do her voice, and when I got my audition, it was really similar to what you talked about, where they were like, can you voice match this, but can you kind of put your own spin on it as well, and then that's how I ended up doing Rosalina, but I had played the game, like I knew.
You did.
Oh yeah, like I used to play speech. And so like when we would like race Mario Kart, like if you go on my Instagram, there's a picture where I was in this play that we all just hated being in, and a couple of my fellow actors, like one's a really huge gamer, like he's the reason I have a DS Lite, because we'd be doing another show, and he had his DS Lite backstage, and I'd like play on his DS Lite when I wasn't on stage, and just be like, this is the best, and so he's like, give me money, I'll go buy you one on a break, and I was like, okay. So he like ran to and got me that, and so we all had DS Lites, and we would bring Mario Kart backstage whenever we weren't on stage. But we were in this like period show, so we had like these costumes and things and stuff, and my dress had pockets, and so all the guys' costumes had pockets, and we would literally like race backstage and then like put it in our pocket and come out and be like, oh, blah, 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 you know, and then do this show. And if you look on my Instagram, if you kind of have to go down the grid a bit, but there is a picture of me, and I've drawn like the outline of where the DS Lite was in the pocket, and it's me in that costume. I guarantee there's a DS Lite in my pocket, because we were just like just getting through that experience, like racing Mario Kart during that show. So I knew the game by the time I had actually auditioned for it. Like I knew what I was doing with that, but I remember the day I got the call that I had booked it, because I had done the audition and then didn't hear anything for like a week or so, wasn't sure, and then my agent called me. They're like, yeah, they want you to come up and record, and I was just like, oh gosh, I'm gonna be in a Mario game. Yeah.
Woo! Let's go! So both of you are, you're doing voices that other people kind of did previous. How did it feel kind of going in, having to do a voice that someone else has done?
I liked it. To me, it's like it gives you sort of a boundary to know, okay, this is what we're aiming for, and then like Laura said, and then putting your own spin on it, and then depending on what plots or scripts or things that they have worked up, then you have a chance to, improvise. And I think I always say this to all the actors, because how many people here would want to do voices like for games? How many voice actor people are there? Yeah, so there's a few, and so we're always advising that like improvisation and practicing just working with another person, and if they said this, what would you say? Because if you get in and they give you a script, it's a surprise to you. Wow, I didn't know they were gonna do that. How would I say that and sound believable? And then if the other person says something, how would I react to that and sound like I mean it?
And it's not even, you don't even get the benefit of words sometimes. Like when I auditioned, my first game was Super Mario 3D World, and Rosalina turns into a cat in that game. But nobody knew that yet. And so I went into the audition, and so they had me, when I'd been given the initial audition that I had just recorded from home and sent in, and then they did what's called a directed callback. So that meant we set up a time, so they were in Seattle and I was in Portland, and they were like, okay, we're gonna have you do some of what you did in your audition, so I'm doing the lines, and then all of a sudden they go, okay, now we'd like you to do it as a cat. And I was like, what? And they go, oh, she turns into a cat in this game, and I'm like, okay. But then I was like, what line? And they go, just like, imagine like just doing some of these things as a cat. So then, there was no like cat, being falling into hot lava, cat, like there was nothing specific. Yeah. So then I'm just over in the booth going, I'm like making all these cat what felt like a year, because nobody's coming on and saying anything. It's just me doing that, and then I kind of ran out of ideas. And I just got quiet for a second, and then all of a sudden they come back on. This is the very end of the audition, and they went, okay, thank you. And they were kind of like laughing, and then they went away. And I was like, I either just made the biggest fool out of myself, or that went well. And I walked out of the booth and I said to the engineer, because he was just there making sure that like the source connect worked and stuff, and he said, I was like, how do you think that went? And he was like, oh, I don't know, I've been reading a magazine, I wasn't listening. So I like went away just going, I don't know how that went, but you will be surprised sometimes, or sometimes people will, the internet changed everything, right? Like confidentiality went out the window when people like suddenly were able to post something, and people can suddenly like got information. There were lots of leaks and things, so people like really like I have to sign NDAs to even audition for a lot of projects. Like literally, like we will sue you if you talk about auditioning for this. So when people ask you, what are you working on? It's like, I can't talk about any of that. I can't even talk about what I read for. I can say I auditioned for something this week, but I can't say what it is. It really, you know, it really kind of changes the game. So sometimes you get scripts and it's not for the thing you're auditioning for. Like you find out later.
There's a code name or something, and they've called it that so that it won't
Or
be leaked.
they'll send you lines from a totally different project that aren't in that project, and they'll give you a rough idea of a character that's only up in the book, and they're like, all right, here's what this is. Yeah.
And I think what Laura was talking about is pretty cool too, because a lot of times when you're doing it, you aren't going to get a reaction from anyone.
You're not gonna hear it.
You don't know. And even think about like if you're doing a voice that goes out in a game, you don't know, do people enjoy it? That's why we love cons, is because we're sitting there and someone comes up and goes, I love playing this game. Here's my favorite. Here's what I do. And you feel like, wow, it matters. It makes a difference. But I think like, especially in this season where a lot of us have been more isolated, like a time to be resilient in your heart. Like, you know what? Even if I don't get any positive feedback at all, I'm going to just know with confidence that I can put my whole self into this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to believe it, and just do it. And I think, you know, whether it's voices or whether it's whatever else you're doing, that if you're doing that, it's solid ground, and people need that now. Like they need someone who goes, I am fully here, fully doing this, and I don't care if I have any approval or not. I'm just going to do this.
I've noticed with people who are having fun are fun to watch. So if you enjoy what you do, like there's usually a lot of joy in people watching you do that. Like there's certain things I'm not interested in, but being around people who are passionate about it is interesting. Like, you know, you're like, I collect water bottles, and I'm like, really? That's an interesting, okay. And then they're like, oh, but no, you don't understand this one. And then they start telling you about it in great detail, and you're like, it's not something I'm gonna pursue on my own, but passion is fun to be around.
Yeah, if you're willing to make a fool of yourself.
Yeah.
Yay!
Okay, so Samantha, you started playing after The Voice, and Laura, you did it before. Do you now, you know, play more of the games? Do you find time to play in your free time?
I don't. I wish I did. I'm so jealous. I want to. I started playing Mario Kart on the Wii. And yay! I always play Peach on a bike, and Rainbow Road is my favorite. And I started playing because I was a new stepmom, and I was really worried about being a stepmom because stepmothers are evil. And I was like, I don't want to be an evil stepmother. And so this little kid was 6 years old, and the thing that we found to do that we had in common was to race Mario Kart. And so we raced this together, and it was such a special, like it was super bonding time, it was super connecty, and it was fun. And so for probably about, I don't know, 5 years, 3 years or so, that's what we did. And so I love it. So that's my favorite, and that's probably the last time I played a lot, because it's just hard to find time. And I have a daughter now who's, she has special needs, and she's 10, and so I'm pretty busy, and I've got some other jobs too, so it's like, wow, life is full. But I want to play. As soon as our daughter gets big enough to really super get into it and know how to do it, I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't play as much as I wish I did. It's time, you know, like the thing about being an actor, like if this is your full-time thing, it's kind of like job hunting every day of your life. Like that, when people are like, oh, I think I want to be a voice actor, I'm like, the thing that you're usually trading for the fun is the stability, right? Like if you work for an insurance company, you know what you're doing every day. For me, it's like, even when you have a gig lined up, you're still lining up the gigs that are coming after that. I know some people might think, oh, you work on Super Mario, we don't get paid every time a game, you know, someone buys a game. Like, we don't get like a cut of that. That's not how this works for actors. Like, you get paid for the work that you're doing. So, from a time standpoint, because games take up a lot of time, and I'm obsessive about them, like when I get into playing them, I play them a lot and will play for hours, and so I do have to like set limits around myself with even just being online. But I think Strikers looks fantastic.
I think it's really good.
I would really like to
play that.
It's,
woo!
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like the graph, and I've like people. The goodness is like people will post stuff on Twitter, and then you get to kind of see it. Or like even I do voice in Genshin Impact, and people will go on like their Twitch stream and invite other Genshin actors, and they'll invite you to come to like play your hangout, and so they'll play it. So I just get to then see it, But then I don't have to figure the game out myself because if you're not good at it, it's going to take you forever to get to the stuff that you want to see. And I'm not.
Okay, so Samantha, I know from I guess some of your history, you've been all over the world, right?
I was born in Africa, and it's actually really funny because my husband's African American, and he always was told his mom, "I'm going to marry a woman from the motherland," you know. And so he goes, "I've met the woman I'm going to marry. I'm going to bring her home, and she's born in the motherland," you know. And his mom's like, "Awesome," you know. They bring me home, and I'm like this small white girl, and they're like, "Where is she?" Here she is. So my family, my dad worked in the military, and we traveled all over the place. So we're Africa, Southeast Asia, we were Germany, we were anywhere there's a military base and stuff going on, we were there. And in some ways, I mean, it's that thing I talked about before, where if you have kind of an unstable home life where you're moving a lot and you don't have any friends, it really helps to have a kind of a secret world in your head where you have characters and you have fun voices and things that you do, and you just carry your world with you. So that's kind of what I did. But I think also like it makes you, I don't know, being you don't need as many people like if you're used to traveling around a lot. So yeah.
And then Laura, you grew up in the Pacific Northwest, right?
I did, and really didn't go anywhere when I was a kid. I mean, like, I didn't travel till I was an adult, and then I traveled extensively because I had a job entertaining troops in the military.
That's right, you did.
So everywhere that, like, your dad was based, like, I was, like, going and doing shows.
What would you do, like tap dancing? Or
No,
like,
it was a terrible show. Like, when I talk about Buddhism, it was not good work, but it was, like, this kind of ticket to see the world. It was an interactive murder mystery show, but people loved it. Like, it would be so funny because I'll never forget one night, we were kind of in the back room and we could hear someone come up and they were like, "So what's the entertainment tonight on this base?" And someone said, "It's a theater show." And the person went, "Theater? You can't drink to theater." And then we did the show and they loved it because it was like interactive and they can go through your purse and your coat looking for clues, and we were coming up and talking to people, and people tended to really enjoy it. But yeah, that was the show that we were taking around. But I did 2 tours of Asia, and 2 tours of Asia and 3 tours of North Europe.
Wow.
And so saw like a lot of.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
really
I
cool
mean,
that
it
you did
is, because so much they were like, that we were always encouraged to hang out after the show too, because you're like, your kids at home, the people that are stationed there. So, yeah, we would do them on UN bases where half of our audience didn't even speak English. That was interesting too.
That's good. Now you do games where you just make sounds. So
Exactly.
You've been a good communicator for a long time.
That's how I knew to speak cat.
So, I know you went into a little bit kind of giving advice on voice acting, but what is when you're getting ready to do a gig, what is your typical prep like? What do you do to get ready? Do you just practice a bunch of different noises?
It totally depends. I mean, if you're just doing the audition, it's sometimes really helpful, like if it's for a show, like an animated show, to like if it exists. Like let's say you're doing a guest spot on. Let's say you've never seen The Simpsons, but you're auditioning for a guest spot on The Simpsons. You would want to go online or on your TV and watch a couple episodes to get a sense of what the show is like. If it's new and you don't know it, you can also, if they have who like the producers are or the writers, you can see other stuff that they've done. So because if you think about like if you're just like watching an animated show on like Cartoon Network or even Netflix, an anime show versus a show on like like a cartoon that would be on Nickelodeon, they're very different. Right? Like the types of humor can be really different, the types of voices. Like, Nickelodeon has so much of this kind of thing going on, like really kind of almost screechier stuff. And then anime, just has since it's softer, it's quieter. So understanding what you're auditioning for is, I would say, one of the most important things. Don't just be like, I have no idea who this is for or what it is. I'm just going to come up with something. So spending a little time researching it is usually my first step. Reading the specs, because sometimes if you're lucky and they'll send you artwork so you can actually see, like, because what if I just said, this person is she's the queen of this, or something like that, and then you saw the drawing and it looked like Elsa and Frozen, and you're like, great, so I might do a voice that sounded regal and feminine, but what if I sent you a picture of Ursula the Sea Witch from Little Mermaid, and then you might do something a little more, like that, like if she looks more evil, that you're adjusting to like the pictures, and then they usually give a description of the type of character. So yeah, it's research, it's looking at that, and then having a good time, like we were talking about, like being around someone having fun, or you know, if I'm trying really hard, I sound completely different than if I'm just like, woo, ha ha ha, you know, and you're like throwing all this different stuff out and playing. And people tend to want to work with people that are playful, that aren't afraid to bring something to the table. They're having a good time and seem to be enjoying it, as opposed to like, oh, I'm doing good work, and you sound like you're being punished. You know, so please like me. There's something about that that's less attractive than someone who's like, hey, I hope you like this. I liked it. Here you go.
Yeah. I like to get warmed up kind of like in the car, because the car is so private that you can make as much sounds and make them as weird as you want.
Do you ever stop when like you realize you're next to someone in traffic and they see you like and you're talking to yourself and you're suddenly like,
But it just to, and then try some voices on like in my head, you know, and just go, well, okay, no, it's like what you said. There's sort of some ideas that I think it's going to be. I'm always nervous, which I don't think is a bad thing. Being nervous can help you have a certain energy that is actually kind of cool. So yeah, so just mess around in the car, and then by the time you get there, and once you get started, I don't know if it's this way for you, but I'm always nervous, and I always think, I don't know if I can do this. I probably can't do this. And then I get there and I go, begin it, and you're like, oh, I can absolutely do this. And you just, once you begin it, it's not as scary as the idea of doing it for me.
And did I answer the question right? Because you're talking about more once you booked it, going and doing it, right? And I was talking about auditioning, but no.
I mean, hey,
Which of us got it right?
We're not that question.
Both
Come on.
work.
Okay.
But I mean, maybe, Laura, if you want to go into like, once you've booked it.
Once I booked it, I was talking about auditioning, sorry.
Hey,
Once I
I'm
booked
sure
it,
they
yeah,
love it.
a lot like what Sam says, like for sure warm your voice up. If you can work out before you go,
Oh, that's a good idea.
it's really good to even just go for a walk. But I usually, there's a way to like, if I were, when I was like recording Rosalina, like I just ran on the treadmill at the hotel before I did it, because you have different lung capacity after you've moved around than if you've been like just woken up, right? Like think about the way you sound when you first wake up, where your voice might be scratchier, but then by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you sound different. So warming up your voice for sure, and then yeah, just trying to have fun, like when you actually get in there, I think is one of the most important things. Because it's like I said, sometimes you don't have a lot of information. Like you think you know what you booked, and then you show up and you're like, actually it's this. Like you just, you know, couldn't talk about that.
Yeah, and lemons and stuff like that. Like lemons help you get a lot more saliva.
If you're doing like audiobooks, like green apples, if you like, if your mouth is super dry, like a bite of like a Granny Smith apple, like not a big bite, but like a nibble, will like increase like your saliva production. That's a like tip.
We're telling you how to make more spit.
How to make more spit. You're welcome. Think about what you like and then start doing it, but then you're gonna have like the too much spit sound, which is disgusting. Like we're never going to be more aware of how gross your body is than when you do voiceover, because like if you record right after you eat and then your stomach's like making noises and you're like holding for that, or you're hungry, or like if you have any
The
level
clicking noises
the
of a mouth.
clicking or the traces of a cold, or you sound like, you know, there's like that snot sound that like smacks. Yeah, it's gross. Like you're just like, I'm so disgusting. But it's on the mic, and then you have to go back and hear it and like edit.
And you can kind of tell, like after you've been doing it for a while, if you have a line, and the way that we'll do it normally, they'll go, can you do 3 takes of that line? So you're gonna do the line 3 times, and if I find I didn't hit it, like I know enough to go, this is what the character would sound like. I didn't hit it. You just keep going until you hit it, and you're like, I got it. Now I got it. And you never apologize. I never say sorry. You just go and
I'm
keep
gonna do
going,
that for you
and
again.
then eventually it'll be correct.
Well, Laura, I know that you're really into like Disney villains and stuff. So what other fandoms and things are you both into?
I'm a big Studio Gilby fan. Like I love like the Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro and like that whole world. I love the anime world. I think is really interesting and beautiful. I'm a huge fan though of like I do love like kind of the like more grown up cartoon stuff that's happening right now. The adult animation stuff I think is really interesting, and some of it is absolutely hilarious. Yeah, I'm trying to think different fantasies. There's so many. Sometimes I'm just pulled in by the artwork, and then I'll actually start watching it, and like, this is really interesting, cool. And I do think the passion that people have for these different fandoms, like Genshin is like such a huge following. Like people are so excited about that. We're excited. Yeah, it's all very, very few that I would say like, oh, I have no interest in that. Like everything else.
Disney princesses, anything with Disney princesses. Our daughter is 10, and so I know I've watched every Disney film many times. I know all the lyrics to everything, and yeah, so I love anytime. And at the cons, my favorite thing, I mean, we're both like this, that we love cosplay is our favorite, and so thank you. There's so many of you that I've gotten to talk to, and if you're cosplaying, it's beautiful. It makes all the rest of us happy. And thank you for sacrificing like that, because I know it's hot and sometimes heavy and sometimes uncomfortable. And you worked for probably a year to put something very beautiful together, but you make the rest of us so happy. And I totally geek out and almost frighten people if I see like someone in a princess costume. I'm like, how can I take a picture? And then they're like, okay, yeah. So yeah, so thank you for doing that if you cosplay.
Have either of you tried doing cosplay?
I'm too scared.
Yeah,
I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could.
If I was going to do it, I should have done it before I started coming to Comic Cons now and intimidated, because like people would come up with some incredible stuff when I'm like, I can't compete with that. I have thought though I should cosplay as Rosalina for Halloween at least some year when people are more forgiving if it's not amazing. But yeah, you know, here's the thing. I got really crabby around costumes when I was like doing tons and tons of theater. And I have my best friend loves Halloween. She and her husband both love it. They throw this great party every year. But it always fell when I was doing another show. And they were like, you know, you gotta come in costume. So I would take off a costume and a wig and a corset, whatever I had on for that show. And then I'd have to put on another costume at like 10:30 at night to then go to this party. And I remember like that just happening a few years in a row where I was like,
Costume burnout.
You know, yeah, but like everything, like, you know, wigs and false eyelashes and makeup and other clothes all day long. I was like, oh, I just want to like put on jeans and a t-shirt right now. Yeah. So I got very lazy about like even Halloween at a certain point. But I will say, like, seeing what people do with this is really inspiring and impressive, but intimidating.
Leave it to the pros, probably.
You guys are the
I
pros.
tried it. I bought some stuff, and then I tried it on. I was like, nope. You gotta know when to say no. I was like, I can't pull it off, so I'm not going to.
So how many different cons have you all been to over the years? When did you start going to cons?
I've probably been to, I don't know, maybe 7.
I thought you'd been to a lot more than that.
No, I've only been to about 7. I started a few years before pandemic. My first one was FiyahKitteh in California, and then you know I went to a couple more, and then it was COVID, so I didn't go to any more. So this is one of our first ones back. So
I thought you'd done like 20.
no. No,
I'm really new. Like
Yeah.
we actually like I'm doing this basically because of Sam.
I made her do it. So well, you're welcome.
Yeah, like I hadn't ever done that. Yeah, it was so funny because we had never met. And a huge regret I have is that we did not meet sooner. Like I ended up cold contacting you on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I had started doing signings for Genshin, and I was curious for Sam. And then they asked me if I would do some for Rosalina on Stringly, and I was like, maybe, I don't know, because for Genshin you have to like commission artists and stuff. And then I was like, I contacted her. I said, when do you get your artwork for signings? And she was like, oh, through my agency, I'll introduce you. And she introduced me to her agency, and then we met for the first time at SAC Anime in January of this year. And I was like, we have wasted so much time. I live so much closer to you that we could have hung out. And then I like loved her immediately, and I was like, oh my God, we've been having a princess party for some time now because we don't record together.
Yeah,
You know,
so we never met.
I think some people think, you know, Charles and Kenny and Sam and I are all like in a room recording together. And it's like, I first met you and Kenny and Charles like this year.
Yeah.
I knew who you were, but we never crossed paths because you work alone a lot. Like certain shows record all together. There are definitely like animated shows, like The Simpsons like does it all together the same way. Lots of shows do that, but a lot of games kind of get people as they can individually. Because a lot of times in the game you're not responding to the other person. Like you're responding to the player because someone like knocked you off Rainbow Road. So that's what you're responding to.
Not me, but somebody else they knocked
Somebody
off.
else.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is my 4th con. Because my first one was SAC Anime, and then we did Pensacon, and then I did SoCal Retro Game Expo, and now this. So I'm a newbie for sure.
She's awesome though. I knew she would be great because one of the cons that we did together, I forgot to pack a hairbrush. And so I'm texting her like, hey, do you have a hairbrush or something? And she goes, I'll get you a hairbrush. So she goes out, and I don't remember where we were, but it's like,
it was Pensacon, and they kept saying, "Oh, well, did you guys do right?" Because I had forgotten lipstick because I hadn't had a mask off my face, so it was like just never even thinking about it. So we both forgotten things, and they kept saying all day, "We'll take you to CVS," and it just was not happening.
she goes out in a sketchy neighborhood in like the middle of the night and buys me a hairbrush. And I was sleeping, so I was all happy. So the next day I got this really cool hairbrush and it was Rosalina Blue, so then I had her sign it, and it's one of my prized possessions.
I'll always take care of you.
Thank you. Yeah, she's my
My
friend.
star shining.
Aw.
Now here's a question. Have you played like Mario Kart or Super Mario Party together yet?
No, but someone should set that up at a con.
Let's do it.
Yeah, like they should like totally have us race as Rosalina and Peach.
Let's do it.
We
I
should-
would lose, but
But it'd be great if Kenny were there too.
Yeah, Kenny's, he's competitive.
I know, and
He's
plays a
been
lot.
playing a
I'm
lot
sure
more.
he can do this.
Yeah.
And then he'd be super smart.
He plays
about it.
Bowser, Kenny James. He's
Yeah.
usually here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually had Kenny back in 2018.
Yeah, you were, you
Yeah.
did, right? And Charles too.
Yeah, we had Charles too. And Jim.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some good. Yeah, it was good.
Did you want to do audience questions?
Yes.
Sounds like we had some questions. Yeah, let's get into questions.
I think we have a question.
Oh yeah.
On the spot.
Look, shoot. Okay. Man, oh,
It's okay.
hello. Yeah. Okay. So my question I have, for you two, how was it like, getting to figure out that like you guys were gonna work for Nintendo? You kind of already answered this, but like, kind of more deep into like, how much did it change your life? That's my question.
Oh. You know, it wasn't a big change. I didn't realize how cool it was until I started playing the games, and then I was like, oh, this is a big deal, you know, and I didn't know. She already knew for sure how cool it was. I started in 2007. My first game was Strikers, which is so amazing that now, you know, it's come the full cycle. And yeah, it didn't change, and it didn't change my life really until I started going to cons.
Yeah.
Because it became more real to me that there were people who loved it and what it meant. So you guys are the reason that I even love. I was so afraid to do cons because I thought I'm pretty shy, and I thought, what if people are mean? You know, what if it's weird and people are they're not nice? And I went to my first con and I was like, this is the greatest community I've ever seen. Like, if the rest of the world acted the way that we all act at cons, it would be a great world. And so I just kind of fell in love with them. So my life changed after cons, but way more so than just voicing the game, I would say.
Yeah, I would say it's really similar because here's the thing. When you voice a character, you have complete anonymity. You know, it's not like you're suddenly on a
Right.
TV show and you walk down the street and people are like, hey, is that so-and-so?
Right.
Like, you could, I mean, it's so funny because you can be in a room and someone could be talking about it or playing a game. Like, you could be at an airport and someone's like playing on their, you know, device and you hear your voice or something. And you're like,
That's
you know, they don't
nobody
know
knows.
that you're sitting right there. You're anonymous. And so the only time that people even can put a face to you is in a situation like that. So did it change your life in the way that maybe people get famous on TV? No, you know, because you're anonymous.
And we didn't make a lot of money, so it's not like
No, it's not like like
So,
then I got my mention.
No, it's still working job. Oh,
Let's start here and we'll move our way back.
Since Lego Peach came out a couple of days ago, what was it like recording for that?
oh, Lego Peach?
Yeah.
That was fun. I actually got to go to Nintendo headquarters for the first time to record Lego Peach. And I was I was in awe because it's like Disneyland for grown-ups, you know, like it's just huge. And it was in the middle of COVID, so there were no people there. And there was just all these, almost like a museum of video games, you know, just from the very beginning, arcade games, and all the way up, and you could just walk along and look at everything and all this like memorabilia and stuff. And I was kind of in awe. So going there and recording that was really special to me. And I'm excited too because in some part of me thinks, wow, if Lego Peach comes out, there's going to be a lot of little kids who maybe can't do video games yet, but they'll get involved with these characters and they interact and they grab prizes and stuff like that. And so they're gonna have a lot of fun playing the stuff that we love. So I think it's kind of cool. It includes younger kids in the whole gaming community.
Let's go right here in the red.
How defensive do you guys get over the characters that you play, and how protective are you of your characters? Are you guys open to Princess Pauline joining this Princess Party here?
Yeah. The more princesses, the better.
Oh,
That's pretty much.
we would love it if Deanna would come too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we would love to have like the
Yeah.
Princess Party, and yeah, no, I'm not proprietary about it at all. Like, because think about it, like if you as a fan, like some people come up and they will like say to Samantha, Princess Peach is my favorite, and then some people come up and they're like, hey, Rosalind's my favorite, and then at the end of the year they'd be like, Daisy's my favorite. It's great. There's not just one thing to like. Like, I think, when you span that out, like, there may be people who don't identify with Rosalina, Peach, or Daisy that would love to have Pauline in that.
Yeah,
Because that's who they connect to.
we would love that. Good question.
The white glove.
The white glove.
So because the Princess voice actors have changed so much, you ever think, not phrase it properly, is there like maybe a fear that maybe like one day that you would be like a new casting choice to be made, or like do you know if it's really Nintendo who decides, or maybe the voice actor who makes that decision?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, absolutely. I would love to keep that character as long as possible, and as long as we still get, but I'm always, honestly, I don't take it for granted. And I think I'm happy enough to have done it that if and when that happens, I go, okay, that was a good run, and I don't know, I think these characters are made for all of us to play too. So it's sort of like, just do it well. Just do it well is all. But yeah, I want to play it as long as possible. And I'm always, if I get the phone call that I'm going to be recording, I'm like, yay, I'm still it. Because you never know, because they won't call you and tell you suddenly you're not it. There will just be a game released and it will not be you. And you'll go, oh. And I'm not looking forward to that day or how weird that'll be on Instagram, but at least it'd be like, you know what, good run, and as long as you're doing it well, I'm in, I'm good.
And it happens all the time and across, projects in so many ways, and you don't always know the reasons around that. Like, it is interesting to me when fans will sometimes kind of assume why something changed, and we don't know, what happened with the previous, whether, and it could be something like someone's union status changed, let's say it's a non-union game and someone went union and suddenly they couldn't do it anymore. Maybe in the main time they were going to record that game, someone in their family was sick and they're like, I can't be there because I have to be here. What if they were working on another project where it became a conflict of interest? Like, oh, you can't do this and that. So I think, there can be that tendency to be like, ooh, you were doing a good job and that's why it changed. You don't know.
Yeah.
They don't ever make the assumption as like, oh, I know why that happened. So I don't think there's any shade when it gets changed out. And I certainly don't think that for any actor is ever looking at that and going, well, that's because I was good and this person wasn't. You're not thinking that. You're like, we know how this goes. Like, there's a million reasons why things change. Maybe that person's like, I'm retiring. I don't want to do it. I have throat cancer and I can't. There's so many things that could be a reason why someone would continue, or why that someone would not continue you. Like, new person coming in running the project wants to take it in a new direction. Things like people revamp and stuff. So no, never. I think what Sam said it well. You enjoy it while you're doing it. Never take it for granted. And then say that's it, because that's just like showbiz.
And there's always something new. I think that's when I was young in my career, I always was like, I have to have all the toys in the carpet. Like a dog who's got all the toys in the middle of the carpet. I felt like I've got to get all the jobs and all the things. And at this point, I just go, there's enough for everyone. And there's always something more that comes, and the next thing is always better than the thing that you've had. So there's no fear. And that goes for everything in life too. The next thing will be better.
And how great that you got to do it for however
Right?
long you did. These opportunities don't come up a lot.
Yeah.
For some of the stuff. They don't come up often. So,
Yeah. But that's a good question.
Right Here's the
Are
crowd.
you guys looking forward to hearing the new interpretations for the Mario movie of all the voices?
Yeah.
I'm super curious.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I like all the people, so I'm like, I thought it'll be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Rosalina, she's not even in every game, so I don't know if she's in the movie. I have no idea.
We'll find out.
Yeah. I haven't like seen a cast announcement around it, but yeah, who knows? But yeah, I'm still curious just to see what those actors do with it.
Here in the red, and I'll get you in the back.
Do you have any advice for people who are kind of looking to break into voice acting but don't necessarily don't know where to start?
And the biggest thing that we've always will tell people is that, you know, if you don't have an acting background. So here's the thing: if you're how many people when they think about being a voice actor think commercials? Right. How many people think video games and animation? That's because that's the fun stuff, right? And so when you're talking about this is acting. Like you can have a pretty voice and maybe do industrials or commercial work and sometimes or announcery type stuff. But most voice acting, what really helps you is having an acting background. So my first thing is like, it's an acting training, you know, go to school for that, learn to be an actor. That's how I started. And it's so funny because even with commercials, one of the last commercials I did, I was doing the voice of an animated car for a gas company. So I was, you know, talking about, the car was talking, like a mom was like, she was in the baby seat and now she's in the driver's seat, you know, and so it was like, but I was acting, even though it's like for a gas company, it was, you know, it was an acting job. And I frequently, you know, like when you're working in pairs, sometimes you're like the annoyed wife, you know, sitting there being like, all right, Charles, how many times are you gonna, and so you're still, it's still like playing the scene a lot of times, unless you're doing announcer type stuff where you're going, like you were talking about like doing Nordstrom's, and what does that sound like? That's like, you know,
The half yearly sale is going on now, so get over, you know, like
like that's, and granted, you're still playing something, but you wouldn't necessarily have to go to acting school to do a spot like that. It's about, but I will say, if you want to do this type of work, acting will help you the most. We both have theater backgrounds, you know, so that was very helpful. Kenny always talks about that too. So getting some acting training, and then from there, usually what you need to get is an agent to get in on the kinds of stuff I think that people are thinking about. But that doesn't mean, in the meantime, you know, you don't want to like go on social media. Like you go on Twitter, sometimes you'll see certain people will be like, hey, looking for people for this type of a game, doing free stuff for a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just building a resume, putting together a reel, taking classes. Like take acting classes first to just learn to act, and then maybe go take specific voiceover classes. But I wouldn't recommend sometimes just jumping into voiceover class with no acting training. It's a little bit of an uphill climb. And find out if you like it. Because some people really like it as an audience, but don't enjoy the process of doing it. I think it's fun, but I'm me. And other people might be like, I don't think this is fun at all. I think it's tedious and boring. Why are they making me say this over and over and over again? Or it doesn't click for me, or I just don't enjoy it like I thought I would. That's all legit. But I would say acting training, specific voiceover, animation, video game training, because that just helps you kind of understand how it works. Networking is really important. The more people you know in the industry, the more opportunities come along. And that sometimes means really reaching out on your own and contacting people, or sending your resume and reel, following other actors. There are so many voice actors being so generous on podcasts and on their like social media, giving tips. And just be a student of that. Like, just that's a free class right there. Bob Berger, you know who that is? Voice of Porky Pig. He's got a great Instagram, and it's just full of like him sitting in his booth giving great advice. I highly recommend following as many voice artists. Like, if you like a particular voice artist, see if they have a social media. And a lot of times they will talk about stuff out there, and like start following those accounts and watching those videos and learning what you can. It's like free college.
That's right. And then the other thing I think that you can do at home is just read. Like get a script or get something and just read it and practice flowing with it. And if you have a way to record yourself, a lot of times I learned a lot by editing myself. So if you get like the free Adobe Audition or something where you say it and then you're like, that wasn't funny. Why wasn't that funny? Or why didn't that sound real? And then you just pull it and move it around and you critique yourself and listen to it, and then you're like, nope, not quite. What would sound right? And then try it again, and just read with a friend or by yourself, just trying to not read it but to say it, Because a lot of times in an audition, you'll be given something to read, and if you're just gonna read it like you're reading a script, it doesn't sound true. But if you are gonna read it like you mean it with everything in your heart, you really mean it, and then you're doing it in a way where they're gonna go, wow, that girl is special. You know, there's something there that I just believe her, and so I want her, and that's what you want.
And Sam, do you stand totally still when you record?
No.
Me neither. And
Turn
sometimes
around.
people like, you know, they get right on the mic, but I'm, you know, where it's
Stand
like,
up.
woohoo! And like you're like, I use my body, because you sound very different when you're standing still than when you're moving.
Yeah, and if you're standing up, you have, because when you're sitting down, you're squishing your lungs, and so you can't get as much air. Like, we're probably not projecting as much here as we would be if we were standing up and talking to you. But if you're standing up and your position is open, then you're going to be able to get more volume if you need it, or softer, more power behind your soft voice.
And on top of that, another thing I would say, you know, a lot of times people be like, I do a really good so-and-so, right? You know, like they'll
Imitation.
Imitations,
Yeah.
which is great if you have that, but also mostly do yourself, because people have, like if you're like, you know, I do a great Princess Peach, well, we have a Princess Peach, so you might just have to wait till she's not doing it anymore.
Till I
for some
die.
reason. And then, right, so either, you know, wait for that, or do you? Because what I've really noticed that I think is incredibly interesting is people don't always know what they want until they hear it. So I will sometimes have done an audition for something, I've read the specs, and they'll say, you know, we want this person to sound, you know, like really stern and really uptight, you know, so you know, you do the thing and you sound like that, and then you'll hear it, and it's someone talking like that, and you're like, what? They didn't say anything about a southern accent, they didn't say anything about sounding syrupy, but some person probably turned it in and they went, oh my gosh, that's so interesting, I love it, they know it when they hear it. So people who are like, oh, I should try and use my dialect, no, you should not. I should try and sound like so-and-so, no, you should not. You should try to sound like you. You do you, because you may be the next big thing that suddenly everybody else will be like, I kind of want it to sound like Priya. You know, like that was your name, correct? Yes. We met earlier, we were chatting, but she, they might, yeah, we want you to sound like the next Priya. Like that's who we're really excited about right now. And it's hilarious because I have a friend who was, I knew was the voice of, that like had done something, and I remember getting, they said, we like the way this ad sounds. They said it's a voice reference. Sometimes they'll be like, we want you to sound kind of like an Allison Janney, or we want you to sound like a, who's hot right now, who would be giving his voice reference. I'm always getting like Allison Janney, Issa Rae, you know, the zeitgeist changes, right? Like I remember when The Incredibles came out, everybody wanted you to sound like Violet in The Incredibles, because she had such a, she got that kind of voice, you know, it was like, it was unique. So suddenly you'll get like, you know, these references. But I remember they sent me the reference and it was my friend. And I like emailed her, I'm like, you should audition for this because it's you they want. Like they want me to sound like you. I don't know why they don't hire you. But it could have been they didn't send it to that agency. But I was like, contact your agent, because they literally sent you out as a voice reference. That's you.
Wow.
I'm dying for the day they send me.
They probably are. You just don't know.
No, when they send me to me. When they're like,
Oh,
oh, like
that's
someone
what
who
it
sounds
sounds
like
like.
Laura
Laura
Faye
Faye.
Smith. And I'll be like, I'll try.
The other thing is too, there's some free stuff too, like voice123.com. It's kind of fun. They send out auditions and things like that, and so you may be able to grab a couple little
But
jobs.
be careful. Voices.com and Voices123, yes, do them, and I have done them. There are scams on there, so be
Oh, that's good to
very
know. Yeah.
aware. But people will sometimes try to talk you down. They'll be like, "You're super broke. Could you do this for $25?" Like now, like if you're trying to build a resume,
If you don't care, that's
and you
okay.
don't care,
$25,
and you're
you know.
$25 you didn't have yesterday. But be aware sometimes that people will try to get you for as cheap or free as you're willing to go. There's one called Voice Bunny, and that's all like free, I think. And I think if you're starting out and you're just trying to build your experience, fine. But be careful, because someone might, like for instance, if it's, and here's something I never used to think about, but there's conflicts, right? So if you do a Burger King ad for free and it runs nationally everywhere, McDonald's is not going to hire you because you're the voice of Burger King, right? This is why we have agents. A brand is not above asking someone to do something cheap or free and way underpaying if they think they can get away with it.
That's fair.
But you need to be really careful about that. If it's for like a really major brand and they're like, yeah, we need, and I've seen it, like I've seen these breakdowns where they're like asking people to do something for nothing. And they have billions to spend. But they can get you if you're good, and they can
Right,
get you.
right.
So they really do kind of know how it is. So like, how many people wouldn't mind being a voiceover artist in this room?
For free.
No, I just wouldn't mind being one. Like, I mean, the market is flooded. So there's a lot of people wanting to do it. Brands have kind of figured that out now. I go, I can just get someone, and then if you just happen to be great. But it could affect you. So if you sign contracts that say we can use your voice with, it says on there in perpetuity. Look for that.
Means
In
forever.
perpetuity means
Yeah.
forever. They can use that app forever, and it could mean that then later another brand won't touch you because it became a really big deal that you did it for free. That's more on the commercial side of things. Animation, video games, less of a thing. To go do a free video game startup project that then turns into something, that's no real harm in that. But if you are looking at commercial stuff in brands, do be careful when you're on like a voices123voices.com. And those sites are also what they call pay to play, which means it's a yearly fee and then you can audition for a bunch of stuff. There's also scam people running on there. Be very aware of this. If anyone ever says, congratulations, we hired you, and they send you money, and then they get you to record the job, and they're like, oh, you know what, we overpaid you. We sent you a check, and like, oh, we overpaid you, can you just like send us the difference back? So let's say they said it was gonna pay, they said we'll pay you $500, and they send you a check for, well, let me go, let's say we'll pay you $200, they sent you a check for $500. And they say, can you give us the $300 back? And you're like, yeah, no problem. And then you do that, and then their check bounces. Like that was a scam people were doing on those sites. So they get you to do the job, and then they get you to even pay more than you were supposed to make in the first place by sending you this fake check, and then you get nothing, and they just disappear. And so I've heard about that scam happening, so just be careful on those sites, because no one's regulating it. There's nobody there just like able to tell you if that's legit or not.
In the back, that's full time.
So, what was the audition process like, and like the journey of like, or basically being the voice of these beloved characters?
Well, when we went in and began, I mean, first of all, I always know after Charles has been there because the mic is really tall. I go, oh, he was here and plays Mario, Luigi, Mario, everybody. And so as we started doing it too, I think every game is different. And so when we first come in, you kind of figure out, well, what's the flavor of this game? What kind of things are going to be required? And that's why we talk about improv, is just that you're ready to turn on a dime and do what you need to do based on what they're giving you right in that moment. We never see the scripts or anything ahead of time, like Laura was saying, because it's so proprietary. We don't get to see it, and when we leave, we don't get to take any scripts with us. They make sure it's like, you know, you see it, and you leave it, and you don't talk about it. So we just have to be able to kind of flex with whatever they've got, and each game is different.
Can you like I'm trying to like remember the question you want, the journey of the character?
Yeah, like what was your journey with like the audition process, and like when you got in and you now play this beloved character, and just kind of like how you feel as being basically the voice of the character.
Yeah, when I recorded Rosalina the first time, it was like over a period of several days because they were like just establishing so many voice lines. Really fun, really collaborative. There's a director too. I think it's so interesting sometimes when people will be like, or if they don't like something and they kind of act like you had any level of control over that. Well, we don't make the final decision, like, in terms of like what line is used or if they put an effect on it or something.
They pick the read that they like.
They pick what they like.
Yeah.
It is very collaborative in that sense that you're not just there. You don't just go, all right, Nintendo, here's what I would like this to be. There you go. Bye. See ya. Like you're there, you're working on it, and they're like, oh, we liked the read number 3. Like, let's get 3 more like that. Like that's kind of the journey and the process of it. And then they have like kind of a clear idea, and there's feedback, and sometimes like they'll get feedback from Nintendo in Japan, about stuff that you're doing, and like just making sure that everybody likes that before it goes out, and it is what it is. Am I answering your question?
And I think the characters, like when you first start doing something, it's just like meeting a person. You don't fully know everything about that person when you first begin. But I think over the years, like we have a good understanding. Like I know who Peach is, and I love her dearly. and Toad too, you know, and it's like to travel with them over years, you get to know them better and better and better. So yeah, it is a journey. I like the word that you chose, that it grows. Just like getting to know somebody, you get to know them better, and they become more of who they are, who they're supposed to be.
And because we came in on characters that had already been established, you know, like they existed before we did them for the first time, that's a little different than when you walk in and do a character for the first time.
Like Charles did.
Yeah, or that, and I think that's like a lot more, and like when I did Genshin for the first time, like, you know, it was the English dub of that project, but it already existed in China and Japan. So there was a sense of it, but we spent a lot more time in the first session of just figuring out kind of exactly how they wanted it to sound. And like, there was just a lot of finessing, you know, try it more like this and try it more like that. And so that is the thing about, you know, when you go get your training to be an actor, like learning how to take direction, people who have experience in theater and stuff, or like working with directors, do so much better. Their job, I think, is more fluid. It's easier for them than people who aren't used to taking direction. Like, I have sometimes worked with people where the director will give them a piece of direction and they do it, and it's like, that's not exactly like it. You just,
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if they can't hear the difference or they don't.
Say it happier.
Yeah.
Say it like you're underwater.
Yeah,
Say,
like,
and you're like, they just did it the same way every time.
There's a really funny meme someone did where this guy's like, why are you here? And then they're like, okay.
Say it with anger.
Why are you here?
Okay, say it like you're passionate.
Why are you here?
Say it like your heart is broken.
Why are you here?
Excellent. Great job.
And then they go, how do you feel about that? And he goes, yeah, I think I'm giving them some real good variety here. It's hilarious. But I have sometimes, a couple times, been in a session with someone where I was like, how do, like, can they not hear that? That sounds exactly the same, and maybe sometimes you can't. I will say the process we talked about, you know, editing yourself.
Listening
Boy,
yourself.
you learn a lot when you
And
listen
it's
to
awful.
yourself. It's brutal at first. You're like, oh, my voice.
Or looking at
like,
yourself like, oh.
Yeah, watching your own self tapes.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's like, it's not like you sit there like, this is amazing. Well, maybe some people do, and boy, more power to you. If you're like, every time you see yourself, you're like, look at me. I'm so good. But I think most of us are like, why did I do that weird thing with my face?
Yeah.
Like, why am I sounding like that? And that's not how it sounded when I did it, and now I'm listening to it, and now I'm like, yeah, that's not it. I usually will wait, if I have time, I will record earlier in the day and then listen to it at the end of the day.
Yep.
When I've forgotten it a little bit, because sometimes you are like, yeah, that was not what I was going for, I get to do this over. Or even if I can wait overnight, it's better.
And
But
you have
don't
fresh
always have
ears too. You can listen with fresh ears, and you're like, oh, I thought that first take was terrible, but it actually was the best one.
Well, and I've done this as a buddy with other VAs, is I'll send them, like, if they want multiple takes, because when they say we want multiple takes, they really want them to sound different. It's not like, you know, they don't want, why are you here? Why are you here? They want, why are you here? What? Why are you here? You know, they want to hear it. It should just be obvious. I will sometimes send it to a friend and have them listen back, and I'm like, what do you think? And they're like, not enough difference to send 2 takes, send 1. You know, and I like this one of the 2. Or they'll be like, yeah, no, they're both great. You know, if you're trying to decide, there's a friend who just recently sent me stuff, and she's got lots of experience, but I was like, I can't hear the difference. But it sounds really different to her because she's been laboring.
It's like audio selfies. You're essentially looking at which picture. They all look the same. Oh no, that one's a little different.
No,
Yeah,
no, this one my head's slightly. And I'm like, well, really, for the person looking at it, it's all gonna feel the same. So you've got to be your own forgiving critic, but a critic of yourself. And you've got to disassociate from the work and not be like, you have to be self-critical in that process. Because unless you can hire someone, or you have someone built into your life who's willing to sit there and listen to every audition you do and do that work for you. And trust me, your agent is not that person. They don't have time.
Yeah, don't be high maintenance.
You'll be like sending them all your takes and being like, which one? Which one? They're gonna be like, you need to decide. Only do it for the really important ones. Like, save those for the time when you really want someone to like be a second interview.
Okay.
Well, everyone, unfortunately, that is all the time we have today for the panel, but thank you all for
I'd say hi too if you guys have
We'll be back at our tables.
Yeah, they will be back at their tables soon.
Thank you. Thank you.